I came up with the idea of doing 3 figures, a mother, a father, and a child running for freedom. The idea was to do the sculpture out of chain and having the man who is in the lead running through a plane to freedom. That way, the front of the man's face and his outstretched arm and his knee, which would be going through that plane, would be bronze. There's a LEADS organization, which is a leadership organization that every year the class of that year chooses a project to complete. The year that they contacted me was the year they decided to do a sculpture commemorating the Underground Railroad in Sandusky, Ohio. All right, let's bring her hair over and put some up over on this side. I want this, actually, when we get to it, to be up higher, her ponytail up higher. I bought books and started reading books to find out, what I had to do as far as the sculpture was concerned. One of the most important things that I learned was that men, women, the families very rarely escape to freedom. So it was usually the young men who were strong that would escape. They weren't really informed of the city that they were going to. They were given a code name, and the code name for Sandusky was the City of Hope. When they escaped to Sandusky, it was a very good place for them to go because there were people here on the shore that would aid in their escape to Canada. One of the things that I did, I ignored the thought that it was only the men that escaped usually, and I concentrated more on the idea of the family unit, the Black family unit, and that was important to me. And I did a man who really isn't an 18 or 19-year-old person. I did an older person that maybe is in his 20s, 30s. He's not starving to death. He's clean shaven. He has a haircut of today, and he's obviously not portraying a person who was escaping in the 1800s. My thought was to provoke people to think about, why is this artist portraying a person of today? Why is this family only part way through the plane to freedom? The thought to me was, I want people to think, today, are Black people truly free? And how are we involved in helping them to be truly free? My hopes are that they won't just look at it as a cute little sculpture and continue. My hopes are to cause some thought in people's mind, not just to pass it, but to stop, read the information that is there, and learn something from the sculpture. We took wood and glued together the cheapest wood that we could find, 2x4s, leftover wood, whatever. Lowe's gave us wood to put together. It was all glued, and then I used a large grinder to grind the forms. After the forms were done, then we welded the chain over the forms. And it got confusing to people because they thought that there was going to be wood inside the chain. So all that was welded over our wooden sculpture. Then I said, well, now we're going to burn out the wood. So people were sort of surprised. They were saying, well, aren't you going to leave it in there? I said, no, we're going to burn it out.
Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, that you stand by me, wherever I be. Oh, Lord, my soul is sinking down in my dying hour. I love you, not you. time has come.
So we got the Sandusky Fire Department to get involved, and they were happy to come over and pick up the sculpture, and they took it over to the beach, and we torched it. And it was so scary, but they were involved in it, and after they were finished, they took it back, cleaned it up, delivered it to the Mac Iron and to Luco, where they did some extra welding on the now chain sculpture, which has no wood inside.
As we go today, we need not only to look at the past and what Sandusky stood for back in those old days, but we need to focus on this as a beacon for the present and where we go in the future. And for that, this magnificent lady, who in her own beautiful, creative way has given you a beautiful, creative path to the future. So congratulations to you, Susan.
Once we got started, there were several different phases of the sculpture that had to be dealt with. And it wasn't a matter of my just doing it myself in my spare time. I mean, my house has been filled with clay dust. My house has been filled with, the garage had wood shavings everywhere for the next phase. So welding, everything was all here, done at my home most of the time. And my home was a disaster. But the problem was it took a lot of time because frequently I was waiting for someone to get off from work to come over and help. Someone else would be on vacation and they'd be back in 2 weeks. So because of the different phases, you had to wait till the one phase was finished. You really couldn't schedule the next one. So it's taken probably a little over 2 years to actually produce this sculpture. The important part to me is that it was a community piece of art. The welding isn't the most beautiful welding. I didn't want it to be beautiful. I wanted it to be rusty looking. I wanted to have different colors in it. I wanted it to have a lot of character, and the different people that welded on it really made that possible because it's all different. And I'm hoping that the community will get an excitement going here with this economy the way it is. It's an exciting idea for artists to perhaps volunteer their time or volunteer their talents and yet let other people get involved in the art and produce something that no city could ever afford to do right now, not a small community anyway. And I think also the fact that everybody does it as a joint effort, it makes it so much more exciting because they had some involvement in it in some way. As I've gotten older, I get as much enjoyment out of getting something finished whether I do it or not. I just would love to say, I do this and do that, and this is what I want. It's the idea coming to its fruition that's important to me. It's not important to me whether I did the whole thing myself. That's really not important. This passes as a thought-provoking piece of art that in just having the information available makes people wander around a little bit more, think a little bit more, get involved in the sculpture itself more than they would in a regular piece of art.